Hey guys, I am Nicole Schlechter with Nicole Schlechter Advocacy. I'm so glad you guys are here today. We are talking about IEP goals for real life. Now, if you guys have paid any attention to the live chats that I've done in the past, we have talked about goal writing, and I've written a blog about it, and I've done other videos about it. But the reason is that it is an important tool, it's an important skill set as a parent for you to have, so that you can look at your child's IEP and make sure that the goals are written effectively for your child. If you guys are new here, again, I'm Nicole Schlechter with Nicole Schlechter Advocacy. I am the mom of 4. My oldest son has ADHD and autism. And I am a master IEP coach and special education advocate. And I say both because I do things a little bit differently than other special education advocates. Nothing against other people, we're just all really different, right? So as a master IEP coach, one of the things that we really work on is creating confident parents and collaborative IEP meetings. That is definitely a goal of ours. So part of my job creating confident parents and collaborative IEP meetings is making sure that you have the right tools to make sure that you can sit at that table and advocate for your child too. So often you guys come to the table and you're prepared with your parent input statement, your services, your related services, your service minutes, that giant list of accommodations that your child needs in order to get through the day and be successful. And then we get to the goals and parents kind of tend to freeze up. Everything seems okay and everybody's in a good mood and everything they're offering sounds good, but so you just kind of move on. But how do you know that what they're offering is everything that your child should have? How do you know that those goals are a priority and that they're important for your child? How do you know that they are something appropriate and attainable that your child can achieve this year? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Before I get into the details of real life IEP goals, I want to make sure that you guys understand what a goal should look like in the IEP. So when we're talking about long-term goals, we don't know what we don't know, right? So we depend on the team to write goals for us. And I want you guys to be able to look at the goal and determine if it's written effectively. Again, we're creating confident parents here, right? So has anybody ever heard of SMART goals? This isn't just an education thing, but in order to make sure we're writing effective IEP goals, we need to make sure that these goals are SMART. And SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. And I talk really fast, so if I need to slow down, leave me a comment, let me know, I'll go back and repeat something. So I want everybody to go quick grab your IEP if you haven't, or go grab it after this and come back and tell me about it. Does your child's IEP goals meet that criteria? Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely? I'm going to be willing to bet that a lot of the goals are set up that way. But just because they're set up that way doesn't mean that it's a priority goal for your child. So another thing that we want to look at is if that goal sets up your child for further education, independent living, and employment. Those are 3 things that are quoted from the IDEA law, which is special education law, to make sure that these goals are appropriate and attainable for your child. Remember, we're talking about real life goals here today. So if your child's goals are not setting them up for further education, independent living, and employment, we need to think about why we're spending time there. What is the purpose if we're not trying to reach one of those things? And I know a lot of you are probably sitting there like, dude, my kid is 6. Can we just focus on tying our shoes for right now, right? I just want to make it through 1st grade. I have no idea what I'm doing with remote learning, and I totally get it. Shoe tying was a goal for my son for a long time. It was a big one. It was a hard one for us to work on. So shoe tying, when you're saying that, is an important IEP goal. That's a real life thing. Those are skills that your child needs in order to be a successful adult, right? I mean, I guess that they could wear Velcro shoes for forever, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I would be willing to bet that a lot of our kids are capable of tying their shoes. So if that's something that's a priority for you right now, maybe we should be talking about it at the IEP table. And I want to touch a little bit on IEP law. So special education law is governed by IDEA, and it's very specific. It says that an IEP should ensure that all children with disabilities have available to them a free, appropriate public education, or you might see it referred to as FAPE. And that emphasizes special education and related services designed to meet their unique needs and prepare them for further education, employment, and independent living. So I didn't make that up. That is part of the law. So when you're sitting at the table and you're reading through the IEP goals, make sure you're thinking of those 3 things and determining if this is setting your child up for later on in life. Further employment or further education, employment, and independent living. Independent living could look different for all kids, right? This can be like making sure that they are dressing appropriately for the weather, or it could be living on their own and doing their own laundry. Independent living is, not specific in what that has to be. That doesn't mean that they're moving out of the house. That just means whatever's appropriate for them. So it seems like, I know when you look through those goals, these goals are like tiny little goals, right? But we want to think of them as steps. So each of those little goals is going to build up to the next step. And that next step is going to get us closer to that further education, employment, and independent living. This doesn't mean that, again, all children are going to be living on their own, holding down CEO jobs. These goals should be attainable and relevant for your child. So that means independent living or employment should be whatever is relevant and attainable for your child's unique abilities. If your child is never going to be a cashier, we're not counting coins, right? My mentor often uses this example of counting coins or counting change, and I love the example, so I use it often also. I want you guys to ask yourself, in the last month, when was the last time you counted change when you checked out at the store? It's garage sale season, so you might be counting change a little bit more frequently than you were in the past. But in the last year, how often have you used that skill? This is frequently part of children's curriculum in school, and so it's frequently an IEP goal. But is it a priority for your child? If your child has been working on a goal like this or this specific goal for over 2 years, we need to reevaluate. Do we need to step back and go a little bit backwards a little bit to make sure that we've really mastered the skill that comes before that? Remember, we're looking at these like a staircase. So that step down, have we really mastered that skill to get to the next step? And if we really just cannot get to the next step, is this goal a priority for us anymore? Because if it's not a priority, we should not be wasting our time on it. Can you live the rest of your life never counting change again and only using a debit card? You probably can. So this may not be a skill that we need to spend our time on. We only have a short amount of time while our children are in school, right? So we want to make sure that the skills that we're working on, those IEP goals, are going to take priority over other things. That means that sometimes we just have to let things go, and it's okay. It doesn't mean anything by it. It just means there's other priorities that we need to work on right now. So again, when we're reading through our IEP goals, we need to be asking ourselves, is this appropriate and attainable for my child? Does this align with the priorities I have for my child? That's a big one. What is important right now? So again, prioritizing, and this is going to be a really important one for you guys this year when we're talking about more remote schooling and more COVID schooling and school looking so different. Are your IEP goals that were in your IEP before still appropriate right now? And does this goal build skills towards a bigger goal? So sometimes we have to have this big giant goal, and we've got to break it up into little chunks to make sure that our child masters skills before we get to this big goal. Skill mastery is how we learn goals and our kids maintain those skills. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about some real life examples of priority real life goals. And if you guys are readers like me, you don't always want to watch a video, there is also a blog post about this up on my website, NicoleSchlechter.com. I'll leave the link in the comments at the end of this. And I'm not going to talk about all the goals that I have listed on the website because you guys can read. And also, nobody wants to sit here and listen to me talk for that long. So there's 20 IEP goals in a goal bank. on the website. You guys can go check it out. A lot of these goals are focused on social, emotional, and behavioral skills because that is kind of my niche. But there's some other things in here that are really important life skills for our children to have when they're moving on to further education, independent living, and employment. So one of the first things I want to talk about, and these are all goals that are in IEPs of clients of mine or friends of mine that I'm supporting, things like that. So these are real life things that are in IEPs as we speak. The first one I want to explain to you guys is, it says, when given survival signs, so that would mean stop, exit, danger, all of those things. I always use Mason's name. He's my oldest son. Mason will recognize and role play functional meaning of the signs with 100% accuracy 4 of 5 times measured by observation by December 2020. So when you guys go over to the website and you're looking at that goal, I want you guys to pay attention to if it's a SMART goal or not. Are we being specific? Yes. We're talking about survival signs. What is he going to do? He's going to be role playing the meaning of the signs. How are we measuring it? Measured by observation. Is it attainable? Yes, this is an attainable goal. Is it relevant? Yep, this is something that they need to know. It's an important skill for them to understand survival kind of signs like this. Understand what stop and exit and yellow light, green light, all of those things are. And how is it timely? Do we have a unit of measure on here? So we're measuring it 100% accuracy 4 or 5 times, but we also have a date that we're measuring it by, December 2020. So if you guys scoot over to my website, you can see that as we speak. Another one that is one that we are currently working on with Mason in his IEP goal, and he's 11, but he's a math kid. And so one of the things that I think is really important when we're talking about IEP goals is incorporating something that they enjoy into the goals, something that a skill that they've mastered, something that's a preferred subject for them, something that's a preferred activity for them, that sort of thing. Because if it's something that has this much of something that they enjoy in it, they're going to want to work on it a little bit more than something that's a non-preferred activity or non-preferred topic. So, for example, he did a book report last year. He had a book report every month, and when he had to do the graphic novel book report, he was done in like a week. But when he had to do the fiction, the historical fiction, he was just not having it. It took us forever. It was a huge source of anxiety for him. He is a black and white, facts only kind of kid, and fiction is not his thing. But math is his thing. So one of the things that we're working on him with is when given a shopping list and a budget, Mason will use sale papers to shop from his list while staying within budget 4 out of 5 times with 80% accuracy as measured by writing examples by December 20. So again, we have a measurement in there. We have a date in there. We know how we're taking these examples, so how we're going to chart this, how we make sure that he has the skill, and it's very specific. He's using a shopping list with a budget and using sale papers to stay within budget. This is something that he thinks is really fun, so this is an IEP goal that's going to get completed really quickly. Another great one is talking about participation with peers. A lot of our kids are struggling with social skills, right? One of the things that I hear frequently is, well, they're sitting at the table and they're talking to their peers, or they're laughing with their peers. I'm always seeing them laughing. So are they laughing, or are they sitting on the outside laughing? Are they actually engaged in what's going on? Is this a two-person kind of conversation? When playing a game with peers, Mason will watch what's going on and actively participate in the class without verbal prompts for a minimum of half the game, 3 out of 5 consecutive sessions, as measured by observation by December 2020. This one we're talking about active participation. So this is a huge one for employment, right? Or independent living even, definitely further education. Participation does not mean sitting on the sidelines and laughing with a group. Participation means that you are talking with the group, you are asking questions, they are responding to you and asking questions of you, you are giving your input. All of that is active participation, and it's a really important life skill. And it is something that I do not see often worked on once we get past middle school or high school. So if your child has not gained that skill in elementary school, a lot of the times we're working on different things, but this is still a really important skill that our kids could have. Let's see, there is another one that was a good one. So another way that we can describe IEP goals so that we understand them is to talk about where they are going to take place. So this one says, in counseling sessions, Mason will accurately identify feelings and appropriate coping strategies when presented with real or imagined situations with 80% accuracy, 4 out of 5 trials by December 2020. So I love this one, and this one is really common for kind of all ages. It might look a little bit different for older kids, but it's still an important skill. We need to talk about with our kids how they can regulate their emotion. In the moment when our kids are seeing red and they are dysregulated, there is no amount of us talking to them that is going to allow them to use those coping skills unless we have practiced with them one-on-one in a counseling session, and then in a group counseling session, and then we move it over and generalize it into a regular classroom, maybe into a small group. We need to be having those discussions. So this is one of those that we build the steps with. So we're going to start with a counseling session one-on-one. Then we're going to move it into a group counseling session. Then we're going to generalize in the regular education classroom or in the special education classroom or in a larger group, whatever those steps look like for your child. But again, this using your appropriate coping strategies is an important skill, right? I sat in a meeting with a parent one time, and they had a really hard time accepting that their child needed breaks throughout the day. And one of the parents was like, if I took a break every time I got overwhelmed at work, I would never get work done and I would get fired. And he's right. That is not a great skill to carry over into adulthood, right? Take a break every time you're overwhelmed. So what we want to do is make sure that we are kind of backing off those breaks. We're going to teach them to use those breaks that as their coping skill now while they're younger and they're overwhelmed. And then as they get older, they're going to learn to manage their emotions and regulate their feelings more easily, and they won't need as many breaks. That's the whole idea or the whole thought process. But by giving them the tools to know when they need to take a break and know what coping strategies they should use in each situation, we're setting them up for employment as they get older. How many of you go outside and take a walk when you're, been sitting too long and you're just overwhelmed? How many of you go take a break and get some water or some coffee? It's called coffee break for a reason, right? Like, these are all skills that we have as an adult, and we don't necessarily know how they translate into elementary school or middle school, but this is kind of how we get there, so that we're preparing them for adults kind of problems and how to manage those inside their little bodies. Another one that I really liked is a organization one. This one is another big one, especially for older kids, and it's again something that we're currently working on with Mason, and it is in Mason's IEP, but it's also in a lot of other IEPs that I look at, this organization piece, especially for our kids who are struggling with ADHD. Executive functioning, which is organization and a lot of other things too, is a huge deficit for so many of our kids. They show up to class without the materials that they need, they're late for class, they're missing their homework, they're not able to turn it in on time. So these are all goals that we can be focusing on school. Even if they're turning it in on time, they may be overwhelmed with how the work is presented to them because it's not organized in a way that they understand it. Or it could be visually overwhelming for them. So then when they come home, they're falling apart doing their homework. Whereas if they could figure out how to get organized in the beginning, then maybe that homework piece isn't as big of a deal, and they can turn in their homework assignment on time, completed as is, because they've prepared it the right way. So Mason will organize his materials in a binder and will bring assignments to and from school with 80% accuracy as measured by binder checks and teacher records. Teacher records would be how they turn in their homework, who's checking their binder, things like that. A lot of the times in IEP goals, I see observations written for all of these things. Observation is a wonderful tool, do not get me wrong, but we don't want to rely on using observations all the time for everything, because observations are subjective, right? So if we really want hard data on what skills our child has, what skills they've mastered, where they still need to have some room for improvement, we need more than just some observations in there. But organization is another great life skill. Problem-solving discussions. This is another big one that we're working on right now. Social problem-solving has been a really difficult thing since COVID started for us. This has always been a problem. I don't want to say a problem, but it's always been a skill deficit. But it's something that we really need to like backtrack and move back to the skills that we had mastered, and then start climbing up that ladder again, taking those steps up again. Because social problem solving is a hard one, right? How many of your kids are not flexible thinkers and cannot focus on other things, other people's opinions or other people's perspectives, right? Like they have a hard time moving on from their point of view. A lot of the times these type of kids feel like everybody's doing them, dirty. Like they feel everything is an unjust thing. Like I can't believe they've done that, and they can't move past that. They can't look at how their behavior impacts other people. So it's something that we want to talk about in the IEP and write it as a goal, because they can't hold a job if they're always blaming everybody for things that maybe they had some part in, right? Nobody's going to want to maintain them as an employee if they're constantly blaming everybody else for their problems. So this goal says, by annual review, given the opportunity to participate in problem-solving discussions about situations that led to frustration, and that could be frustration, that could be anger, that could be meltdown, that could be overwhelm, whatever that word is, because frustration, again, is subjective. So whatever that looks like for your child, you can put in there. Mason will propose a solution and discuss with the collaborating adult whether it's realistic, and address the concerns of both the adult 70% of the time as measured and evidenced by the problem-solving planning tracking sheet. So this is a really cool tool that is available over on the Lives in the Balance website. It's livesinthebalance.org. You guys have heard me talk about Dr. Ross Green's CPS model, collaborative problem solving. This is just another way of tracking data. I love this goal because it is very CPS friendly, that collaborative problem solving model, and it talks about it by engaging the child in allowing them to figure out if this problem solving is a realistic one or not. It allows them to kind of move through those inflexible thinking scenarios in their head and get to the root of the problem and figure out on their own how they can problem solve this problem that they were very stuck on initially. If you guys haven't checked out that website, it has a whole bunch of stuff. If you are not sure if your IEP is written for real life, head over to my website, grab your IEP checkup and review, and after 30-minute phone call, it's all it's going to take. You and I will talk about what your priorities are, what your concerns and goals are for your child. I can look over the IEP and find all of the opportunities for improvement. Make sure your IEPs are written for goal life, and your child will be making progress sooner than ever expected. So next live chat is going to be over with my friends at My Recess Therapy on July 31st. And then pay attention to the events tab. I'm putting some new live chats up there today. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments for me. I'm happy to answer them. I will leave you guys the link to the blog post for IEP real life goals, and also to the IEP checkup and review. I'm only opening that up to new clients for the summer. Once school starts, I will not have time to do those for new clients any longer. So go ahead and grab that now. You can save it and use it later. Have a great day.